What have you done?
I got a whole list of things.
Do you? He had everybody talking like this. And I was like, you can't do a play like that.
Do you ever stop and wonder about Elon Musk? When does he have time to tweet to you?
Yeah, exactly. Patti, I was thinking about this when I was driving here today. I saw you in 1980 in Evita. And I saw you in 1993 in London.
I'm thrilled.
But I'll tell you, it's an interesting thing because, you know, you have had such an extraordinary career. And here's a funny thing I keep going back to. I'm a big nut for musicals. I love them. Can't tell you how much I love musicals. I'm a lousy singer in my family. I'm a degenerate compared to all the singers in my family. But I love all of them. And I have a great affinity towards singers. I grew up around them, you know. And I watch people in musicals and I think, that was great. They did a really great job. And oh, that was fantastic. Or that wasn't quite right. And every once in a while, and it's so rare, that there is somebody that actually levitates the audience. It doesn't happen very often. I can name you 3 or 4 times that I've seen it. I've seen it in films, like if you watch Liza in Cabaret, right? It's not just that she does it great. You levitate the room in a way. What you do, and the 2 times that I've seen you do it, it changes the atmosphere and the oxygen in the room. And so it is such an honor to be here with you because I just think you are spectacular. And I did this interview with, no, you can't be crying at that. That's a compliment. I did this interview with Maureen Dowd and she was talking about pay for actors. And I said, from the very beginning said, I don't want to be anywhere near the highest paid actor. And I said, and in the interview for the New York Times, I said, pay Patti LuPone.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for that very, very, very high compliment. And thank you also for advocating for theater actors, or especially people that are actually treated as workhorses because we've made our career on the stage. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing special about us to producers, regardless of what we have achieved in our career. We are Broadway's workhorses.
Oh, that's funny.
And I'm constantly fighting for my quote.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's
still, even now.
Still to this day.
Really?
And it's, you know, it takes, there's something very magical about, this is our medium. This is the actor's medium, the stage.
Sure.
It's nobody's going to run down, say cut.
Yeah, unfortunately.
No, exactly. And once the show starts, we play it to the end. We're playing it to a live audience, so it's instant gratification. But it's also, as you're probably finding out, you have to have a muscle for it. You have to have a discipline for it. And you have to have a love for it to do it. And then, and as you said with musicals, I feel the same way. There is I guess we all sing. And then when we go into an environment where somebody does that, where they take you out of yourself, and you allow yourself to be elevated, to be,
right.
and so.
But it doesn't happen very, listen, there's plenty of times that I'll walk out of a musical and go, what a great night. The music was great. And I could listen to, any one of the guys that I grew up listening to. I even love I love South Pacific. I love all the old musicals too.
Me too.
And you walk out and you just go, what a great night. What a fun time. And then every once in a while, there's this thing that you can't explain where you just, I don't know who said it, but there's this thing about movie stars where you go, I don't know how to describe them, but I know them when I see them, right? You don't know how to explain it. And to get that kind of emotion out of an audience. And listen, this was a matinee because I was broke. And the matinees were, the cheapest way to see a Broadway play then. And so you were doing that for a matinee. And I just walked out. I was with my 2 best friends at the time, and we walked out, and I was just like, I've never seen anything like it. And so it's not just a gift. It is hard work. It's this combination of all these elements.
It's also the music.
It is the music, absolutely.
If you have a great score,
Yes.
that allows the voice to soar, you would be negligent not to go there. Do you know what I mean?
But tell me this. Now, this has to be fun because it's a little like, it's like during the Revolutionary War when all the Brits would stand in a line and the Americans would hide and fight, unfair. It's almost unfair because you get to sit there going, like, you're going to sing Les Mis, and you know it's coming, and you know what you're going to do. And the audience is sitting there going, gosh, I hope this is great. And you're going to go, I'm about to just blow the doors off of this thing. And it must feel incredibly empowering to know that you have the skill to do it, but also there is this magical thing that you have with an audience.
I don't think that way.
Okay.
You might relate to this, George, you might not. I'm not a big fan of me. So I don't, and then also taking it step by step in a song or taking it step by step in a scene. You don't know where it's going to go. You don't know what the day is going to be like. So,
but you have, okay, but yes, I hear you and I understand exactly what you're saying. And I think actors in general have a little bit of that.
yeah, I think so.
But there is also a reserve over here where you go, I got this. And that's because
you have to.
Because that's the thing that an audience needs.
That's right.
They need to feel like you got it. You're going to take it.
That's right.
And that's what you do so beautifully. And, it's a really good lesson in acting in general is taking people on a ride.
See, that's what I said to you when I saw you, when I came backstage and saw you, and I said you're a stage animal because you command the stage. However much time between your performances on stage, which is what, 40 years?
40 years.
40 years?
Yeah, sorry.
You still understand and you still command the stage. And it's as simple as that. You're basically saying to the audience, relax. And I'm a storyteller. Come with me while I tell you this story. It's as simple as that. And you did that. I
hope to. It's a funny thing. I have a real advantage here because I wrote the material. I know it very well. I'm passionate about it because it's not just about 1954, obviously, and it is about these reoccurrences that we go through in life, in our government, oftentimes. But also because the actors that we're working with, and it's a huge cast for a play. I mean, it's 27 people or something. It's a big cast. And I know that they really have your back in a way. I feel really guided because a lot of them have done Broadway plays. A lot of them haven't too. But I feel like I can look over at Glenn Fleshler or, any one of these actors who I've been working with and know that if I look at them, they've got your back. And for me, it's really helpful because, I'm 63 years old. It's scary to do something new. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
And so I'm always a little off, I'm sort of lucky in one sense, which is like my wife keeps trying to throw surprise parties for me. And every time she does it, and they'll jump out and say, surprise, I go, hey, how you doing? And my wife's like, are you not surprised? I just have a low blood pressure. And so I think it doesn't often appear that I'm nervous when, I'm in knots.
That's great, though.
I'm lucky in that sense,
That's
I think.
great.
I have to say, I have a group of people, this director, David Cromer, really supported me and helped me. He did all those things of like, you have to talk louder. All the things that I, tend to not do. And I think probably actors who've been doing television, film pretty much only for 40 years, it's retraining how to talk to, 1,600 people in that theater.
Right.
It's not a small theater.
Well, you obviously have a very copacetic cast. I mean,
oh my God,
you guys looks like everybody's friends with each other.
Yeah.
Well, that's such a blessing, because
well, that's a real compliment to the director too. And also, it's a funny thing. You've seen the play. There is this feeling in this play that we're part of a conversation that the audience really wants to have.
Oh, yeah.
In a way, I mean, you can feel everybody kind of leaning forward and remember, this is not complimenting my writing. This is complimenting Edward R. Murrow's writing. Edward R. Murrow was us at our best, right? He wrote at our best. He stood up. He was the first guy into the death camps. He was standing on the roof during the bombings of, in London. And he delivered us the truth. And including when it was risking his life or risking his career. And he did it beautifully. He really wrote well. And so people are experiencing us at our best when I get to do his lines, not me, him. And so that part of it it's really, it enlivens the whole cast. We all feel like you can feel the audience lean forward with you. And it's a nice feeling to do. It's, sort of in that tradition of old fashioned theater.
It's necessary. It's so necessary in these times. It's so necessary to hear that elegance, to hear that articulation of an idea, and a noble delivery of it. Because where are we? Where are we? Yeah. We're only getting stupider.
Yes, I particularly am getting stupider as we go.
But you know what I mean?
I know. I feel like I'm missing. I'm missing voices that I really want to hear.
Yeah.
And I'm missing opinions that
I want inspiration.
Yeah. And we're not, we're not hearing much of that. There's a moment in this montage that we have. It's pretty interesting. At the end of the play, we have this montage, of all of kind of the history of television. And people laugh because we show them Lucille Ball, and they should laugh because it's Lucille Ball and it's funny. And I watch them, and then it's Kennedy being shot, and it's Martin Luther King, and it's man landing on the moon. It's television's history, And then it's Jerry Springer.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it's Maury Povich. And people start laughing, and I look at them in the audience, right at them, because they're laughing, and because now it's getting laughs at people's expense. It's cruelty. And now we're laughing at cruelty. And from that moment on, the sort of history of television kind of turns on that axis of we're going to focus on cruelty in a way, and stupidity also, which both of those shows sort of really embraced. And watching how the audience changes as they watch it. We don't tell people what to think. We have lots of talking heads from news programs, but we show them exactly what they say. And then we don't tell people what to think. We just go, well, you can make up your own mind.
I remember saying to you when I came backstage that you're preaching to the choir. I hope that it gets your message in this play gets out to more people to.
I'm not sure what there's a funny thing when some people have said preaching to the choir, and you go, yeah, we're in New York, sure. But on the other hand, there isn't anybody preaching to the choir right now. There isn't really much of a choir right now. So I don't mind having a place for people to sit in a room and hear how we've done this before. Because remember, McCarthy's a demagogue. That's what he was. He was the second most powerful man in the country. And, and Trump's the second most powerful man in the country too.
Right, who's the first? Musk?
Yeah. But in general, demagogues are really fascinating characters because they're charming and they're interesting and they use fear as a tactic and all of those things. And it's important to remember how we get through these things, which is by standing up for what we believe in and reminding ourselves of who we are at our best, not at our lowest and at our most base.
That's where art now is the voice, or should be the voice, before it's silenced.
Yes.
This is where I hope our playwrights take the bait and create theater that will re-educate, awaken, take the chance, really take the chance. Because we're in a very precarious position. And there's a time when the artists lead, and there's a time when the artists observe. And I think it's a time now that all art needs to lead.
Well, I'll tell you an interesting thing too. In the film world, you could never really lead, right? Because it takes you 3 years or 4 years to make a film, right? So All the President's Men comes out in 1976, right? And it was 72 that it all happened. So in general, what film and television, but more so film, it kind of is able to look back and say, this is what we went through, and this is the process we went through. Theater's different because it happens a lot quicker. And so it feels as if theater has this ability, and part of the reason that Grant and I wanted to try to make the movie into a play, and by the way, we did this long before there was an election, These themes go back to Jefferson and Adams, of telling the truth and speaking truth to power. That's it. My father's an anchorman, and when I was raised by my parents, my dad said, I don't give a shit what you do in life. I don't care. don't care if you want to study journalism, which I did for a while. I don't care, whatever you want to do. He goes, you have one thing you have to do. And he said, you have to challenge people with more power than you and defend people with less power than you. And if you do that, you win.
Wow.
And it's a good lesson in life, you know, and he was adamant about that. He didn't care. And so that's, you know, and I fail a lot at it. And you try to live up to the expectations of your parents, you know, but you fail a lot. And you just got to keep, you know, rolling that ball up the hill a little bit, you know, I think. Let me ask you, let's ask other questions. Okay, so you are friends with Mia Farrow.
Yes.
And she hasn't done a play in a while.
No.
And were you partially responsible for her coming back to do a play?
Not at all. I wasn't
Really?
even the first choice for Robin in that play. I think that the play had been circling Mia for a long time. They wanted Mia to be Sharon in this play, The Roommate, by Jen Silverman, for years, actually. It's not a new play. And it came about again, and she and I live in the same area in Connecticut.
Right.
And they approached me, and I know the director for years.
Right.
And I've known Mia for years. And I thought, well, this would be a really fun thing to do. So Mia and I actually met several times and just read through the play ourselves to find out whether we really wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And we thought we should do it because we were social friends up in Connecticut. And we are now much deeper friends because we went through this experience together.
Is there ever a concern that social friends, it's like I'm working with this guy, Paul Gross, and he just did a play with his wife. And I was like,
yes.
And he goes, no, it was great. Was there any concern that could affect your friendship if it didn't work or not really?
Well, of course, there's that possibility, but I adore her.
Yeah.
So it wasn't going to enter into the configuration at all.
Right.
And there was great trepidation in rehearsal because it was just the two of us.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of dialogue. And it's an intellectual argument before it's a dramatic argument. And she learned the lines way before we went into rehearsal. She had her lines learned the first day of rehearsal. Yeah. I had to catch up. We had a blast backstage. We were at the booth, and the booth were we at the booth? Yes, we were at the booth, and the booth has a head electrician, and the props are women. So we had a lot of women backstage. Wow. It was great. And it was just fun. I kept saying to Mia, you know, we would look at it. I always look at the audience before I play to them. I want to see who I have to convince. I'm going to find the person.
So you look out through the...
Oh, totally.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I look out because and I always hit the guy that hates me.
You can tell. You can see him.
Oh, he hates me. I got to prove it to him. And she started going out with me, and we would say a little prayer. We would hug each other, and we would just say, let's go have fun. Yeah. And we did. We had a blast on stage. We did have an issue. This is crazy. We had an issue with sound from Hell's Kitchen. Because
it's so loud outside.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Well, it's an issue on Broadway when a playhouse shares the same wall with a musical house. And that's what the booth and the Schubert do. And the Schubert is basically a musical house, and the booth is a playhouse, but it has one wall. And these theaters were built, over 100 years ago? Yeah. And what we heard, because we were just two people, no music, was the drone of a bass that came. It shook our back wall, and it came into the backstage, onto our stage, and into our audience.
You're kidding me. No. So what was the play next door?
Hell's Kitchen.
Oh,
Hell's Kitchen, which is like so loud. And I have a real beef now with Broadway productions that are loud. It doesn't allow me to come to the stage.
Oh, I see.
Because it pushes me back in my seat. Right. There's also an issue now where you can't understand any lyrics because it's so loud.
Because the music's so loud. The mix is so loud.
It's the mix. And it's like the sound engineers are mixing the band to equal level with the singers as opposed to the other way around where the band supports the singers, so that you can't understand a lyric. Yeah. And I have to say, in Smash, I understood every lyric. I was thrilled to death because it's the only musical that I've been in, that I've seen this season, where I can understand the lyrics. And I can't imagine a lyricist going, oh, it's okay if they don't understand the lyrics. I
They
can't.
don't. And it's an interesting thing. Even like I've directed a bunch of movies, and when you're doing the mix, it's a really fascinating thing because your tendency is you crank up the music a little bit, and you go, now you crank up the dialogue a little more, and then you crank up the music, you crank up the dialogue. And what the discipline you have to learn in all of that is that cranking up that music is not helping. You're actually creating, you need the music, and sometimes you use the music to tell the story.
Right.
But if you don't hear the dialogue, it doesn't work.
And you want an audience to come to the event.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
You want people to lean forward, as you said earlier, with what they're doing in your show. They're leaning forward because they're hanging on the words.
Yeah.
We're here to hear the words.
It's such a cool.
It's common in the Broadway district that a playhouse and a musical house will have, and it happens all the time.
Share a wall.
It actually happened in reverse when. To Kill a Mockingbird was in the Schubert.
Right.
A play was in the Schubert, and there was a musical in the booth, and To Kill a Mockingbird complained to the booth.
To the booth a little bit.
Yeah. All you have to do, they adjust it. They do, I don't know what they do. It's very difficult because these houses are protected, and sometimes they'll put blacks up, they'll hang blacks behind it to absorb the sound. They have to do something because sound is getting out of control on Broadway.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I didn't know that until I got there that we're all mic'd.
Yeah, and that's another thing too.
Well, we are. We're all mic'd. They stick it up through your hair, through my nice fake black hair.
It doesn't sound mic'd, by the way.
Oh, good.
That was fantastic.
Well, he's a really good mixer. It was interesting though because, it's a tricky thing. You want to be able to, for a play like this, we want it to feel more like it's a lot of overlapping dialogue, and we want it to feel like it's urgent and you're leaning into a newsroom, but you also got to hear the lines. And so when we started rehearsal, it's funny because I thought Cromer was out of his mind, the director, because he had everybody talking like this. And I was going nuts. I was like, you can't do a play like that. You can't have it go like everybody's talking at the time. This isn't what this play is. And he's like, don't worry. And then the last night before previews, he goes, okay, now everybody just stop talking like that. And he was just trying to get us to project.
It's about, hitting the back wall. Mm-hmm. How do you, when you think about James Earl Jones's voice, holy Toledo.
He was.
Holy Toledo.
Yeah.
When he was on stage without a mic, because they didn't have mics back then.
Yeah.
And the other thing that it does, what projection can do, is force an audience to listen. Mm-hmm. And then the power of silence is deafening in a theater.
Yeah.
When the entire unit of that audience is one in listening, this silence is deafening. It's stunning.
We have a moment sort of at the end of this montage where I talk about asking people what they prepared to do. And there's a long silence after I ask them. And it's a really fascinating thing because you hear the audience, like you can feel a very different vibe. It's like, it speaks, volumes because they're like, you can see them like moving and you can see them, and sometimes we'll have people jump up and scream, resist, which is,
that's fantastic.
I didn't even know what they were saying. I was like, what are they doing? I thought they were yelling at me. I thought they were mad. But I agree. I love, listen, in film too, it always takes balls to allow room for nothing. Yes. My dad was a great interviewer as a journalist. He was a great interviewer. And he would interview big, Kissinger or something like that. And his interviews were always better than the network guys. And they would always use my dad's interviews because the way my dad would he would ask a question, did you do it, kind of thing. And when they would sit there and not answer, he wouldn't fill in. He wouldn't go, he would just sit there. Did you do it? And then they'd sit there and in that silence, they would have to find an answer. And he wouldn't ever break. And I'd watch him and I'd be like, Jesus, it takes such balls.
Yeah, that's
to
great.
Just to have nothing and just go, yeah, listen. And it's a very confident thing to do.
Exactly.
And it's fun to watch,
Yep.
Okay, so what about when you see the plays that you started, that you made famous, and you see them now with someone else?
Well, I went to see, I'm a Tony voter, so I have to go see everything.
Oh, yeah.
And when I saw, and I was excited, I was actually very interested to see Sunset Boulevard because I had heard really terrific things about it. And I'm very left.
Brained.
Left. I'm left of left.
Yeah.
I'm left of center.
Right.
And I like to see those directors that have concepts, have very strong, very unusual concepts. I didn't know anything about Jamie Lloyd at all.
Oh, yeah.
And I know who Nicole Scherzinger was, but I had never seen her perform.
Right.
And I was thrilled to death to
Really?
see this production,
great.
which was a complete departure from the original production, which I was in.
And you liked it as well or better?
I liked it so much better. I wished I had been in that kind of a production.
And what's the reason?
It wasn't beholding to the movie. It's the story. Clearly, it's the story, but it is not, a Spanish villa on Sunset Boulevard.
Right,
it's not. We're not looking at a 1920s film star. We're not seeing any of the Gloria Swanson, Norma Desmond, William Holden. We're not seeing any of that. It's brand new. I mean, I had quibbles. I would love to have seen costumes. I don't know why they went outside on the street to sing Sunset Boulevard. That's just me.
Right.
I thought the whole cast was spectacular, especially Nicole and Tom Francis.
Oh, fantastic.
And I thought, again, you're talking about somebody that walks on a stage. She could have been nervous. Who knows? She commands the stage.
Well, she must have been nervous knowing you were there.
I don't think they knew I was there.
That's
People knew.
helpful.
What was interesting was coming in. I took my son, and what was interesting, Josh said to me, "Mom, people think they've seen a ghost because they saw me." And then some woman filmed me watching it, which was so crazy.
Nice.
But she turns in a performance it's stunning. It's just stunning. It is audacious. It is. She commands the stage. It is heartbreaking. Her mad scene is spectacular. And that's, I'm an advocate of talent. I'm an advocate of, I want to go in, I want to be moved. I want to be that audience member that's lifted out of my seat.
Right.
That's why I love theater, because it does do that. And it did it. I was so happy. I went home to my husband and said, I don't think I can go to sleep tonight.
It must be a relief, too, I would imagine.
Well,
because you've had them where you didn't like the performance before, and you've said something about it and gotten, right?
What, in Sunset?
No, not in Sunset. I'm talking about other plays you've done where someone else has done it after you or something like that.
I don't think I've ever seen anything that I've done. I didn't see anybody in
Evita?
No, didn't see anybody in Evita.
Okay.
I've never seen Evita.
Oh,
I was in it, but I never saw it.
Oh,
I have a saying. I'm in show business. I just don't keep up with it. So I never. I didn't see Evita. I did see Sweeney. I was disappointed in the production of Sweeney, this revival of it. I thought it was. It's a tragedy. It's a Greek tragedy. It was played for jokes, and I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
You just want to go into a theater and be thrilled. The way I was in your show, the way I was with Purpose, which I just saw.
I haven't seen it.
It's spectacular.
I'm sure
it's he's an incredible playwright. And I don't want to go to the theater. And Smash. Smash is a great big old-fashioned Broadway musical.
Right.
You want to go in and you want to come out and come out changed.
Right.
In the theater. Sure. And so when you hit the pavement, you go, oh, right, this is life. Yeah. That's what you want when you go into the theater. You don't want to be disappointed. So I go in with that attitude. I don't go in snarky going, well, you better prove it. You know what I mean?
But I would think that if I didn't know you were in the theater, I would have been nervous knowing you were in the theater. But I would think that in general, like for instance, I would bet that Nicole would be thrilled that she didn't know you were there, because I would feel intimidated doing something that you've done so well.
I get that way as well when I know people. When I was doing Evita, Shirley MacLaine was in the audience with two very hunky guys on either side of her.
Sure.
And it was High Flying Adored, and I turn around and sing High Flying Adored, and then I point a hairbrush at whoever I'm singing it to. It's a musical. Who am I singing it to? Whatever. And my note cracked. The top note cracked. It shattered. It didn't crack. It shattered. So there was nothing there. I was humiliated. I thought, she knows my note cracked. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, I think that,
Did you talk to her afterwards?
No, she didn't come backstage, and I never told her. Or maybe I did tell her that. I mean, it was I think we want the approval of our,
absolutely,
you know,
of the people you look up to.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I have actors that were in the movie. Jeff Daniels came to see the play the other night, and even that, it's something that you don't want to let them down. You know what I mean? There's that. There's an interesting part of it, but it's. I mean, you know, I can't imagine Shirley, knowing Shirley too. She would adore everything you do. So it's, you know.
It's just really wonderful to be able to appreciate talent, however it manifests itself.
Yeah. It's also kind of surprising at times where you go, oh, wow, that's fantastic. I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
And that's always exciting to me when you go see something.
What have you done when cell phones have gone off in the audience?
What have you done?
Oh, yeah. Well, I got a whole list of things.
Do you?
Well, but, okay, let me just preface this by saying audiences don't know what actors do before they stop a performance.
Right.
There is an unspoken rule that you go to your, you know, I've got eagle eyes because I'm playing to an audience, therefore I look at the audience.
Yeah.
So if you see a cell phone, you go to your stage manager, the stage manager calls the house manager sends an usher down.
Right.
And audiences don't know how many times that occurs before actors actually stop a show.
Right.
And so the one that's my favorite is the one we were doing shows for days at the Mitzi Newhouse at Lincoln Center, and the lights, it's a tiny Greek amphitheater, and the lights spilled out to the first 3 rows of the sides of the theater. And there was a woman, not a man, a woman who was texting from the very first minute of the show, and everybody could see her.
Right.
Her boyfriend or her husband was watching the show. I don't know if she was eBaying or, you know, I don't know what the hell she was doing, but we all came off stage, really 5 of us, we came off stage and went, do you see that woman texting? Yeah, she won't be there for the second act. Sure enough, she never left her seat. She was still texting.
Oh my God.
And Dale Souls and I had a scene, and I'm facing her. And Dale's talking, I'm going, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And at some point I make an exit and I'm passing her. And I usually go, and remember the line is, and remember the word community, I can't remember anyway, but I would shake the first row's hands. So I skipped them, went up to her. She put the phone down, but went up to her and put my right hand on her shoulder and my left hand in her lap and palmed her phone. And the audience saw it, and they went, some of them gasped, some of them applauded, but went on stage and went, I got the phone!
Oh, that's fantastic.
And the stage manager, who was up in the gods someplace, went, yay!
Oh,
so I gave it to the assistant stage manager, who gave it to the house manager. What I should have done is held onto it and said, if you want that phone, you need to come down and talk to me. That's what I should have done.
Oh my God.
But have you stopped the show?
No, I haven't stopped the show. I've been around, I remember back in the day, I saw James Earl Jones, I think it was in Fences, I can't remember which play it was. And, you know, when you don't have money, you go to matinees, right? And so matinees are usually really old people or
Yes,
like people
of course,
with no money, right?
asleep.
And I was right down, like way down, like stage right, like in the second row. And I'm sitting next to 2 really old people who were talking the whole time.
Oh, geez.
And James is right at the end of the stage. He's standing there. And he's doing some soliloquy. And the people next to me are like, what did he say? And like, he said he's mad because his son, and like that. And James is just staring, but he's staring at me, right? Because he can't see it well enough to, and they just keep talking. And he just, in the middle of the show, just goes, I don't appreciate that shit. Like that.
Well done.
And I was like, I'm literally selling the old lady down. I'm like, this is not me, it's this chick. It's a funny thing. I do think people try to turn off their phones. I think they don't realize they haven't turned their alarm off or something. We've had a bunch of those. It's also because now they have these embarrassing phone tones, ringtones. So now it'll be like, you know, it's not just a ring. It's like da 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 da, and you're like.
The other thing is now I love the signers when you have hard of hearing. I love the signers because they're dramatic, but sometimes they have zippers. But now they have it on the iPhone. And I was at a play, and I wanted to get the house manager because a woman had it up, and I went, oh, that's right. They have the lines now on your cell phone. So she didn't have her cell phone on. She had her cell phone on because that was the hearing impaired part of it, which is, it's a drag because she was holding it up so the light was reflecting.
Oh, I see.
But also it's putting the signers out of business, and those signers are so, they're so theatrical.
Oh, really?
They're stunning. And I always like to edge myself over to them because what they're doing is phenomenal. You know, they know the script.
We haven't seen that. I haven't seen any signers yet in the audience.
Well, you might not see signers because they're not hiring signers. It's either a zipper.
Really?
Yeah, it's either a zipper or it's now on the iPhone. And the signers, I miss them. Have you ever seen the signers at a rap concert?
Yeah.
They're unbelievable.
I'll tell you, my favorite signer was the guy. Do you remember this? He was at Mandela's funeral. Do you remember this guy?
No.
And he was standing next to Obama, and he's doing this. He's not a signer. He just got up and was doing hand gestures the whole time, standing next to the president of the United States. It's a funny. You can go on YouTube and watch it. You will cry because he does the same thing like 100 times. You know, it's fantastic.
He just nuts?
I think he thought he could sign. He just made it up and signed it. And people who were deaf were like, "What the fuck is this guy saying?" I like that. Those guys like that. I think are.
Are you having fun?
I am having fun. I was, there's when you write it, there is also a huge responsibility to get, to help get the director what he needs. And so we were doing a lot of rewriting and changing things to make things work because there's all these transitions. It's a funny thing, the difference between a movie and a play in that sense also is to get an actor from one space to another, you can't just cut and, you have to walk them there and get them there. So it required these transition pieces. And so it was a lot of work coming up to, we were right through the tech and right through tech, by the way, what the hell is that? It's crazy. That's crazy talk.
It's pretty intense.
But right through tech and through the first couple of previews, we were still writing stuff. And so that was a great deal of pressure. We were up all night and Grant and I were really trying to hammer those out. So once we got past like 2 weeks into previews, then you could relax into it a little bit and start to, breathe and enjoy it and have fun because, I do speaking engagements for our foundation. And so I'll speak in front of 5,000 or 6,000 people all the time. So it's not intimidating to be in front of a bunch of people sort of live. What's intimidating is trying to deliver what you've promised. Along the way.
You do.
And so that was our goal.
You totally do. I mean, you were thrilling. You're thrilling on the stage. Absolutely
that's
thrilling.
Really nice of you to say.
I'm not kidding. It's just, and I went with Jessica Lange, and the two of us were just over the fucking moon.
It was so funny when you guys came backstage and I looked over and I was like, oh my God, like the two of you there together. It was really, I went upstairs, I told the cast that you were there, and it was like, it's like when you're at a place and Obama walks in. It's like, it was just like, everybody's like, are you fucking kidding me? And I was like, that's right.
Did you tell them how much we loved it? I hope, please.
I did. They were really happy.
It's incredible.
It's exciting to see, listen, it's exciting to be doing a play on Broadway. We're, it's hard. We're filling up the theater, which is nice and it's fun to do. And
it's a big theater.
It's a big theater. And for plays, that's not so easy to do. And we have really crazy reactions. And we've had people just standing up and, screaming and cheering and, and it's really been, it's cathartic for people, which I think is, listen, if that's what they want, then good.
That goes back to what I was saying earlier. This is something that we need, and this is something we need to hear more of. There needs to be more dialogue that reinforces a morality and a truth. We have a lot of work to do.
Well, we do. And, when I wrote the film, Grant and I wrote it 20 years ago. Wrote it because I was being called a traitor to my country because I was against the war in Iraq. And they were picketing my movies. And
I was too.
Government put me on a deck of cards called a deck of traitors. And, and so it was one of those things where I was like, well, I guess. And I remember calling my dad and going, I think I'm in a little trouble. And he's like, do you have money? I go, yeah. And he goes, shut up. Because you can't demand freedom of speech and then say, don't say bad things about me. If you're gonna stick your neck out and say something, be prepared and take it. Fair enough. You don't like what I said, then, you don't want to participate in stuff I do. Fair enough. That's the cost of it. I love all these like shut up and dribble and shut up and sing kind of people. And you go, well, I don't, first of all, I'm not quite sure what your credentials are that you get to say that about me. But also, the other part of it is you just go, well, I certainly am not telling you to shut up. I think you have the right to have your opinions. You also have the right to be loved or hated based on those opinions, as I do. But we wrote it because I wanted to remind myself and others about when the judicial branch and the legislative branch and the executive branch fail us, which is what happened in the lead up to the war in Iraq, that the fourth estate has to succeed because it's the only thing to hold truth to power, right? The only thing then. And that's why we wrote it. And I think that was part of the reception that it got was from that. And so when we were thinking about making this into a play, we were just talking about, because, it was a different government then and everything. There wasn't an election yet. But we still believe that it's an important conversation to constantly have. Murrow says an argument, a subject we should argue about endlessly. It's really true. And I do believe when you hear him say, we will not walk in fear one of another. We won't be driven by fear into an age of unreason. I believe in that. And so those are the things that I find compelling to continue to do. I've never shied away. I've never shied away from this shit, and you haven't either. And I don't care. If people don't like it, that's fine. They're not supposed to like it, and that's what democracy is about, right? There are people that don't appreciate what you say, and you go, fair enough, that's good. Don't appreciate it, but there are people that do, and I didn't give up my constitutional rights when I became an actor.
What I don't understand about all of this in this country is that we can't seem to have a dialogue, a diverse dialogue, or a dissenting views dialogue in this country. You are labeled a communist. You are labeled a fascist. You are labeled, as opposed to, and I remember I sat when I was doing Les Mis in London, Roger Allam, because that's when they had the Workers' Revolutionary Party. Oh, sure. And I sat in a Chinese restaurant with Roger Allam, and one was a communist, one was in the Workers' Revolutionary Party, one was a Republican, another was a monarchist. And there was a dialogue of views, and nobody was looking over their shoulders saying, I'm reporting you to the government. No, and I just feel as though we are in a situation where, and it's not, this isn't recent, but that we cannot have that conversation. That, in order for you to be bad, I have to be good, or, my politics are good, hence yours are bad. It's
funny. I grew up in Kentucky, right? So it's a very red state, and we grew up as Democrats in Kentucky. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Didn't have a lot of supporters. Yeah, exactly. But we got along with everybody. Everybody gets along because ultimately we all have basically the same interests, right? We want our family to be healthy and to succeed, and we want our friends to be healthy and succeed, and we want the best for mankind. That's, most of us have those same needs, but what gets amplified is because it's much easier to get clicks and get attention to create anger and hate. And you see the algorithms that are designed by Facebook to do that, to specifically foment dissent and anger between one another. And the truth of the matter is, I still go back to Kentucky. I still visit my parents. There are Confederate flags flying everywhere. And there are people that I'm very good friends with that I completely disagree with. And so I think we have to remind ourselves that we can, that there's going to be huge differences of opinion, and I think sometimes are worth fighting for, but in general, worth trying to find common ground in. Well, Trump tweeted about me, and then I just got one, I guess, from Musk. I don't care much in terms of what they say. We didn't, what we do in this is we talk about the responsibility of journalists to hold truth to power. Right? That's our goal. Mm-hmm. And so if you're doing that, and we don't tell people what to think, when we show that montage at the end, for instance. You see Megyn Kelly, she's who's come out and said, I'm not a journalist. I didn't say I was a journalist.
Neither is she, by the way. Anyway.
But I'm not quite sure what she's done. I've at least been to, Darfur and Sudan and the Congo and been shot at and to try to get stories out. I'm not quite sure what she has done to be a journalist. Having said that, we only show her words in this play. We don't tell people what to think. It's not out of context. We don't manipulate it. We literally just go, these are your words. Now, people can look at Elon Musk doing his move and go, that's a Roman salute. And maybe it is. We put it on a big screen and we let you make your own decisions. Having said that, I will argue that when you retweet a statement that says that Hitler wasn't responsible for the Holocaust, which he did, then maybe it is a Nazi salute. Maybe. So, but, holding truth to power also means you're putting it in context, and we put it out there. We try to put it in context, and we let everybody make their own decisions. And that's how I grew up with storytelling. So if people want to be angry about that, that's okay.
Do you ever stop and wonder about Elon Musk? I mean, isn't he destroying the government? When does he have time to tweet to you?
Well, he's got a lot of time.
Think about it. It's like, what's that?
Well, the President of the United States took a nice tweet. So, at some point you have to have
oh, God.
I mean, it is funny because he is just a New York beast. And, we've all known him for 30 years. And he was just a guy chasing women. But, whatever. It's fine. We're going to get through it. I am.
Do you think so?
I'm an optimist. Oh, yeah.
See, I'm a half.
You're half empty?
I'm a glass half empty.
Well, let me try to walk you through it in some sense. And again, putting things in perspective. You've been around long enough to remember 1968. Every city in the United States was on fire. We lost Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King. We were losing the greatest speakers we'd ever had. And we set every city in the country on fire. We had the Vietnam War was raging, the Tet Offensive, everything that was going on at that time in our country. President has to basically resign because Walter Cronkite said, that Vietnam's unwinnable. We've been in much worse places, actually. The only thing that is different is the source of information and how much and how many different sources. It's the only thing that's different. But it's not nearly as violent, even though it feels violent. It's not nearly as hopeless as it was at that moment in time. So I will say, and we've done this before, but the McCarthy era was very scary for a lot of people. I will say that we'll get through it. I'm disappointed in law firms. I'm disappointed in colleges.
Boy. Yeah.
But I will also say I didn't understand, in my naivete, I didn't understand how deeply tied law firms and colleges were to government funding. Didn't understand it. So now it makes sense. It's not great profiles in courage, but at least now I know why. But from Jackson to McCarthy to this, the authoritarian, the demagogue, it goes away when they go away, and he will go away. And we will, and they don't have anybody that's as charismatic as him. He's charismatic. There's no taking that away from him. He's a television star. He is. He's charismatic. I mean, I don't agree with him at all on anything, but he was famous from a television show. Yeah, so I feel like we're going to be fine. We'll all get through it, and we do eventually find our better angels. We have every other time, and I think we will again. I'm an optimist about all of that.
I'm so glad you are.
And I believe in it. I believe we'll find, we have to find some people. If you're a Democrat, we have to find some people to represent us better, who have a sense of humor and who have a sense of purpose. And, we need to put some people out there. There are a couple of people that I really admire and I think I think Wes Moore should be president. I think he's going to be a real force in the next election. He's the governor of Maryland. And I think we're going to have some interesting conversations, but we have to start that pretty soon, quite honestly. But I'm looking forward to it. I think we'll get the House back in a year and a half, and I think that'll be a check and balance on power.
Boy, if we can last that long. Do you go on after the show?
I don't.
Because you've got a family here.
Well, yeah, but they all went to Europe right now with the kids. I'm always with the kids in Europe right now. But, I get tired at night now. I also, I have all these lines, and at 63 years, when I did ER and we were doing medical dialogue the whole time,
Right.
I was like, look at the pages, let's go. Well, you did series, you have a muscle. And it goes
Right.
like that. I was 33, I'm 63 now. And I have to replay the play every night before I go on. I have to do the whole play out loud.
I get it.
Because I'm afraid of losing my lines.
I get it.
And if I go out and have a couple of drinks, it'll make it worse.
Okay, I get it.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I've been like, and I'm an Irish kid. I could have a couple of drinks. And so I have to be on my best behavior, And it's also, I have a few friends in New York, but not that many. I didn't spend a lot of time in New York City. So it's a little easier to just go back to my apartment and go to sleep and, watch some sports. They're going to stop us in a second. So before we finish, I do want to say this. It's been an absolute thrill for me to see you, to see you at the play, to spend time with you. I have to tell you that you have given me hours and hours of great joy, and you are an inspiration to all of these people in this town.
When they said that you had asked me to do this, I couldn't believe it because I'm such a big fan of yours, and you just elevated me. So I thank you for that.
You are the best. You're the best.
You are.
So thanks.
Hey, have a great run.
Thanks.
Have
I
a
will.
blast.
I will. Well, we'll get through it.